Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I am your host, Dr. Will, and I am here with Dr. Fatimah Williams Castro. I first started following her on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh, this is some awesome stuff coming through here. And I knew I wanted to have her on the show tonight. The title of the show is actually uh, named after her. Beyond the Tenure track is what we're calling this show tonight because of the wonderful things on her blog. But we'll let her talk to you about that. So, Doc, how are you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for the invitation to come on the show and to meet your audience.
Well, thank you. Thank you. What appealed to me is we have a lot of people in my audience who, are educators and they're obtaining their doctorates. And, some are thinking, do I make that leap to higher ed? Do I stay teaching in the classroom, maybe check out administration or higher? Or a lot of them are actually consulting, such as myself, because I want no part of being a school principal. So, what do you do? Because I know that's what you talk about is you got this degree and what's next. So for those who are watching the show, will you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Fatimah Williams Castro, and I'm the CEO and founder of Beyond the Tenure Track. And Beyond the Tenure Track is an organization that supports graduate students and postdocs and PhD holders, doctoral degree holders altogether, on really how to plan for their future and think about what it is they want to do in the world and what kind of impact they want to make. And so I say it that way. The technical language for it would really be professional development training and career development training. But the core of it is everyone is asking, what do I want to do? Right? So we know we have these different skill sets, we have these different degrees, but we already know that degree and job don't always match up one-to-one. So I am a cultural anthropologist. That's what my PhD is in. And even before I started my business, I was not working as a cultural anthropologist per se, right? So our degrees, our disciplines, and even our interests cause us to ask ourselves the question, what do I want to do? And to look more broadly at how to answer that, right? So we're not just stuck into, well, I have this degree and that means I have to and can only do this one thing or this thing in this way. And that's what we do at Beyond the Tenure Track, whether it's through courses that we have, our coaching membership that we just started as a way to be able to meet with one-on-one with job seekers and professionals who are trying to go to the next level, or whether it's an on-campus trainings that we do. We're always trying to get our audience and those that work with us to think about how to gain more experience and gain more exposure, right? And so more, not as a more quantity of experience. So I'm not saying go and do 5 other additional things, but really diversify up the kinds of experience that you have so that you can have more exposure to be able to answer that question, what would I like to do or what might be interesting to me in the future?
Excellent. What did you think you will be doing after you completed your PhD, and what led you to do the work you do now?
So I was in my doctoral program. I kind of always called myself the skeptical academic. So I was in a research doctorate program, PhD in anthropology at a leading university, leading research university, I should say. And, that training is really to teach you to become a professor. And I thought that that's what I wanted to do. When I applied to grad school, that was what was interesting to me. As a cultural anthropologist, we tend to do work internationally, and that's something that's very appealing to me as someone who speaks a few languages and has lived out of the country before, and also who really enjoyed research. I'd had research experience at the undergraduate level, working alongside graduate students and faculty on small projects that were to help out to create a book. So I'd had a bit of experience to see, just kind of get a window into the world of the professoriate. And it felt like, for my, maybe at that point, 20-year-old self or 21-year-old self that that's what I wanted to do for my career. And throughout graduate school, it was an amazing time in the sense that I did really well. I was publishing, I was co-authoring with faculty, presenting at conferences, and getting job interviews for positions, and also awarded a postdoc. And that was the moment when I had to really listen to that nudging that was kind of happening in my head. About 2 to 3 years before I finished, that kind of skeptical academic, as I'm calling it, I felt like while there were many things I enjoyed about research, there were so many parts of myself and my skill set and the ways that I like to work that were not able to be expressed in the academic setting. And not in a way that felt authentic to me. So I'll give one that's just really simple. We can think about this as being an educator. I didn't have language for this then, but I know that I'm a very great trainer. I do very well with speaking. And that's something that now, I get paid to do, to go on college campuses and deliver trainings and workshops to graduate students and faculty. At the time, though, I thought that teaching in a college setting would be the vehicle for that skill that I have, and that not just skill, but I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy connecting with the audience. I enjoy seeing the light bulb come on and the opportunity kind of shine through, right? I like that. And there's a way that happens in the classroom, but there's also a different kind of delivery that happens when it is done in a training space and not just a teaching space, right? And so that was something I'd had a taste of how to do that. I'd had opportunities to go out and speak and to train. And I started to realize, like, this is the thing. And there's really not this kind of space for me to do this in academia in this way. Now, I'll give pause there and say, certainly, I could still have been a professor, an academic, and gone out and done this work as a consultant. And that could have been just fine, right? So just because I chose to make a career shift, I'm not suggesting that others, because you see that you have these other skills that you like to use, that it necessarily means that you have to shift careers. But for me, I had to do that self-assessment about not just my skills, but how I enjoy working, the type of environment I want to work in, who I want to work beside, who do I want to be my colleagues, what kind of energy do I want them to bring to our work, right? And the sum of those things and more is what let me know that the academy was not the place for me. And so if it was not the place, it's easy to say what is not working. The hard part is to then say what's going to work, right? How do I fill this gap of understanding about what can come next? And so, that was for me the last 2 years of my graduate program. I continued through with the academic job market. So for my field, that means, going to university campuses, interviewing to be a professor, right, on a campus. And that further solidified for me that I didn't want to do it. I got to interview at great places. And what it said to me was, these are amazing people. They would be perfect colleagues if this was the place for me, or if this was the field for me, and it just doesn't feel like a fit. And so that's when I decided, while I was applying to those academic positions, to also put in applications for positions that were, more applied work. And both came through, academic and the other. And I ended up, making the decision to go with the work that was being offered to me in nonprofit management, and had an amazing ride. But so that's kind of the one step in that kind of transition after graduate school. And then the next step was, I'm in this nonprofit management job. I'm traveling around the country doing work that's policy and advocacy. I'm getting to speak. I'm getting to train. I'm getting to use my language skills. Still, it was amazing. Great contacts with foundations, the philanthropic community around the country, especially though in the Northeast where I am. It was great. And I was getting emails and phone calls from PhDs saying, how did you do it? How did you know you could do this? How did you make that shift from graduate school? Faculty member friends of mine calling saying, I don't know how to advise my graduate students on how to make this decision, let alone how to move forward. What do I do? What do I tell them? And that's how BeyondTheTenureTrack.com as a blog was born. And now we're a full-fledged, training and consulting company.
So, what has surprised you the most about working with doctoral students, and how have those experiences shaped how you think about the benefits of pursuing a doctoral degree?
So, I don't know if it's so much that it surprises me, but it's something that certainly strikes me, and I want to create a little space here. What strikes me is that graduate students, and I work with graduate students all the way from engineering, nanotechnology, to linguistics, to history, right? I am social sciences and STEM. That's what we do. We run the gamut. Although most of our clientele is social sciences and humanities, we work with all graduate students, education, et cetera. And one of the challenges that I find is graduate students they tend not to be accustomed to thinking in shifts, that they may shift their ideas, that they may find interest in new places, that they may have an idea that was off the beaten path from when they started 10 years ago or 6 years ago, right? And so when you're not ready for the fact that you may be a different person when you're finishing your degree, or there may be a life event or something that happens that causes you to shift your thinking about what you can do and who you want to be, it becomes very difficult, because what I find is then the student, graduate student or faculty, they come and ask the questions pretty late in the game about what can I do and where can I go. Now, certainly I've helped people who are right at graduation, faculty members who did not receive tenure and they need to shift to another career. But what would happen if, when you get those nudgings like the ones that I had, you start investigating them and taking them seriously? And knowing that taking them seriously doesn't mean that you are required to make a shift, but you are required to listen to yourself, and you're required to listen to the information that the world is kind of giving you, to not put on blinders. That's the biggest thing I find, and it doesn't matter what field. It is the blinders that doctoral students and PhD holders put on when they think that another idea is coming through and they see it as a threat to, oh, but I said I was going to be a professor. Oh, but I have a degree in this thing, and so I have to exactly do this thing. And that is destructive. It doesn't help you, because somewhere along the way, this new information that's coming to you to tell you that, hey, you might want to consider this, or did you know you had a skill in this, and what would it look like to use that a little bit more? When you shut that down, you're shutting down valuable information, and I guarantee you it'll show up again.
Excellent, excellent. You do a lot of work with students to pursue the path of entrepreneurship. How did that passion start for you, and what makes entrepreneurship such a rewarding option for those with doctoral degrees?
So here's the thing, I'm not sure that I necessarily am such a proponent of entrepreneurship per se for graduate students, but I am about entrepreneurialism. That is very important. So whether you're going to be that faculty member at a research institution, a community college, if you're going to be that principal, you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset. We cannot succeed today, and especially as, minorities in the work field or people just entering our careers, we can't get complacent. The world is changing too much. Technology is changing. There's new ways that we can add value to our skill set, and ways that we can add value to the work that we do, the projects that we work on, the companies, the schools that we work with. And so the entrepreneurial mindset says, yes, I know this thing, but I am always learning. Now, that doesn't mean always learning everything, right? That's impossible, but it means I stretch myself to learn new skill sets. So when I started Beyond the Tenure track, I didn't really know anything about WordPress and CSS and, coding. I mean, I knew a little bit about coding, not much at all. I did it myself. I wanted to learn how to do it. I wanted to learn how to set up a website, maintain a blog, shift themes on a website. How do I get videos up there? How do I do this? That skill set I can take with me anywhere, whether it's my civic engagement with local community organizations that I belong to. I now have a skill set that can help forward my work in my community, my volunteerism. Also, if I want to then pick up another position, if I decide one day I say entrepreneurship is no longer for me, I've gained such a skill set along the way, because I didn't say, well, I'm taught to do this one thing and this is all I can do. Or I know how to do this thing and this is good. It's no, I'm interested in other things. How do I capture that, learn that? How do I challenge myself to get into new environments and learn new things? So you'll see me talk a lot about, going to events where I don't have colleagues who are going to these events. I'm not going with them by myself, but you know what? This event may be key for me to meet new people in my field, or it may be key for me to gain a piece of information or knowledge that I need to move forward a particular thing that I'm doing. Or maybe I'm just interested in it. And so, hey, I might not have a friend I can tag along with me. I might not know anyone who's there, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that's what the entrepreneurial mindset is, and that I think is really important for people, no matter what you plan to do. And so entrepreneurship itself is one way that an entrepreneurial mindset can be demonstrated, but certainly it can be done right where you are as a principal of a school. There's a lot of reform that may be needed in a school. Start with an idea and get people going, get people in on that idea. Follow it through, design it, get people excited so they work with you and make it happen. You're an entrepreneur if you do that, right? That's using an entrepreneurial mindset to affect the area where you are and to make change where you are and to improve circumstances where you are. So if entrepreneurship is what people are interested in, I certainly say, I have a course on this because I do get that question a lot from academics. How do I build a consulting business or a speaking business? And so I answered that question with creating a 4-hour training around this with worksheets and templates and everything. But it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of resources, not just money, but time, energy, diverse skill set, advisors, mentors. It takes a bit to build a business. So that's the one thing I would say is start somewhere. If you are interested in entrepreneurship, the first thing is, can you sell a skill? That's what entrepreneurship is. Do you have something of value that someone else wants? And can you actually sell it? Because there's a lot of value out there, but the can you sell it is another thing. And then you can talk about entrepreneurship.
So why do you think so many universities still prepare students for academic positions and not for careers outside of academia?
This is the culture of the university. It's the culture of graduate programs. I was recently reading a book called The Graduate School Mess by one of my colleagues, Leonard Katsudo. It's published by Harvard University Press, maybe last year, I think. And he really, in some of the chapters, really gets down to how this culture of research and the professoriate as the primary profession for doctoral programs and for graduate programs came to be. And it's quite ingrained. It's multi-level in culture. And so it's tough to break culture. It's hard to break culture. Once you get culture going, we've now invested in systems that are built around that culture, right? That help to reproduce that culture. The ways that we train graduate students and then graduate students who go on to be faculty train their students. It's a reproducing culture. The ways that graduate schools reward departments for what their students are doing after graduation, right? The ways that schools invest in preparing their students and giving them exposure to things, not just the academy. So it's culture and it's systems that have been put in place around that culture, even funding systems, right? To get that funding, you need to be able to say, I'm a graduate student, I want to be in this program, and when I'm done, I want to teach this, and I want to research this. It's not, and then I want to be, in the philanthropic field, and I want to make change in this. That's not quite what most of our doctoral programs are looking for.
Because I find it interesting because there's so many adjuncts out there.
Yes.
Because universities they don't hire full-time tenure professors like they used to. And there's so many out there just. They're hitting the pavement. Yes. And I was on Twitter a couple of years ago, and it was around tax time. And this one person was saying how I made $26,000 teaching 4 classes. And I'm thinking, what?
And that must have been 4 classes 4 classes a year, 4 in a semester. That must have been 4 over the year.
Yes.
Over the academic year, which Or more. I'm thinking it or more
It was
class.
more because some people, some places get paid, uh, 3,000 for the class.
That's right. That's what I was thinking of.
And
Wow.
so like that's insane money for me. Like when I think of you have gone through, you've done your research, because a dissertation in itself is a process that you got to be strong-willed to get through that bad boy.
That's a good way to put it. Strong-willed and prayed up. Like,
So you finish that, right? And
yes.
to be like, hey, I want to teach and I want to share all of this, and you only can find an adjunct. And then sometimes you may teach one class at this university, another class at that university, another class at the university. So you're just whipping yourself all around. At the end of the year, $26,000, $30,000 a year. And universities know this reality, but yet they have not said, okay, either we stop admitting so many students, or we now have to change the game career-wise and bring the career centers in more, bring people like yourself in more to prepare our students to think about, okay, you're in your, let's get this plan started now.
Yes.
So that when you have graduated or about to graduate, you either have a job or which direction you want to go into.
Yes. So this is you hit on a challenge that I see more and more deans, because I talk to deans a bit, more and more are pushing for. So here's the two ways that I see this being articulated. And they're not pushing because necessarily they want to, it's just gotten to that like almost tipping point where something has to happen. You cannot have people working for what would essentially be almost less than minimum wage, or a barely, like not even a living wage, or barely living wage, right? You say 26,000. I'm like, I live in the state of New Jersey. Let me tell you, that's your mortgage right there, or your rent, whatever you got. That's it. Like, you're not doing much. And I guarantee you the salaries for this are not much more, even in states that are, that may have higher income levels or whatever. But what I see universities doing, and I'm really excited, I want to applaud universities that reach out to me for things like this, is developing for them. I have a program that I've developed called Options for Success. And Options for Success, I developed it because I saw this exact need of graduate students needing earlier on to see have a comprehensive way to look at, in a safe space to look at, what are my thoughts around what I enjoy doing. Not just what I know, but what I know how to do, right? Because the doc is like what I know and somewhat what I know how to do, but there's more that you know how to do, right? So taking you from the beginning of that process all the way through to, how do I begin to set in motion things that would allow me to have broader options, so that while I'm going through my degree, it's not a shock to me that I may have other interests. It's not a shock to me that I can actually develop in a new area. It's not a shock to me that I need to have professional contacts in these areas, right? So schools that reach out to me are saying, how do we get this curriculum for our students? And I appreciate that, because it's easier to do a one-off workshop. You can bring me in to do a workshop and you can check the box and say, here, we taught our students how to, more about academic and non-academic careers. But it's not until the university puts more skin in the game and says, we are actually invested in more of a solution, that something will actually begin to change. And that solution has to be preparation. So we get the career readiness going, we get that professional thinking going, not just research thinking, but professional thinking going, and also culture change going. And so when graduate departments and when provosts say, we are invested at this high of a level in this university to be able to do this thing, that's when we start to get the shift that we want. The one-off workshops are great. I'll be honest, they're a portion of my business. I enjoy doing them, but it is one small piece. It is not a comprehensive solution. So that's one of the things that I see. And, I see that career services, With varying degrees, they do this well or not. But we all know that career services offices primarily have been structured to support undergraduate students. It's a very different thing to have a 35-year-old man or woman sit in front of you and say, I may not have ever had a full-time job. Maybe I went straight through from grad to undergrad. Now I need to do something else, or I need a job that looks like something different. Can you help me through that process? If you don't have a systematic process to work with those students, I will tell you this, you'll lose them. You'll lose them. They won't come back because there's no trust. And that's what I hear from people who come to me and want to work with me as their, in the coaching space and with the career program that I have, is because they feel like the career services don't understand who they are, and they don't understand the depth of that doctoral training. It's always like, oh, well, why wouldn't you just do this? Or why wouldn't you just approach it this way? Or you're smart, you can do anything. That's not going to get someone from deep knowledge and to job, right? That doesn't sound like an advocate. And that's what people want. That's what graduate students want. That's what PhDs want, is someone who understands them, someone who's walked that walk before, or who has successfully supported people through that walk. And that's why they tend to come to Beyond the Tenure Track.
Awesome. I actually found my job via networking through Twitter.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Because my only thing was, as I was approaching that last few months, I was like, man, I just don't want to be Dr. Broke. Like I don't want that. I got to get that, I need to find something.
Yes.
Where I can, not just pay the bills, but be comfortable.
Say that one more time, because This is another problem with PhDs, particularly in my field. Not just my field, but, I can talk to linguists, historians, anthropologists, sociologists. This fear around wanting a comfortable lifestyle. You won't succeed if you're afraid of the thing you need or you want. Because you're saying that either I don't want it, I'm not worthy of it, I don't think it's necessary. But on the other end of it, when you start saying, oh, I want to take a vacation, or, oh, I want to take my significant other on a vacation, or, gift them a weekend away, or I want my kids to be able to go to this camp that they want to go to. You know what that takes? Money. Exactly. And so part of the work too is getting doctorates. And I find this sometimes with the STEM fields as well, this reluctance to, for them, it's usually more of a reluctance to claim their value in that marketplace. For the social sciences and humanities and humanistic social sciences, it tends to be more of, I don't feel as comfortable with discussions about money or wanting more money. But when you get on the other side of it and you're tired of IKEA furniture that was handed down by the last grad student who was in your apartment, and, you're tired of that, you're going to come back around to, what does it take for me to live in a way that's enjoyable for me? Healthy food, a safe place to live, recreation for myself and my family, helping my aging parents. When it comes down to it, you will need money. I'm not saying you need to make millions, but certainly that comfort level with money has to be developed.
No doubt. And that's something that even for me, let's say this past 6 months, my mindset changed around that, because I'm comfortable with my 9 to 5. I enjoy what I do, but I've been consulting. And at first I was a little, okay, I'll get this job. Oh yeah. But then I got to a point to say, I'm not speaking for free anymore. And I'm not going to be lowballing on this money, because somebody's going to get paid regardless. So why not me? That's just a question that popped out. They're going to bring some other consultant in. Somebody else is going to get brought in to pay to speak at that conference. So why not me? And when I realized that, I said, it's time for me to get this paper. And I was more aggressive in saying, I do want to speak, but I need a fee. And so that just sort of switched a whole new switch for me in terms of where do I take my consulting that direction,
Yes.
and being more aggressive and saying, I want it. I want mine. With a check, you know what I'm saying? Because, and not just sort of there to be there.
Right.
So when we look at doctoral students, when you enroll in a program, you have to have a passion, I would assume, of the topic you're studying. And a lot of people, I know I sort of had an idea what I want to do career-wise, because that was my purpose of applying. But what should students be thinking about as they enroll in those programs?
You know, I say the thing you want to be thinking about is always have an exploration mindset. Don't close off walls. And so exploration looks like exploring in maybe a course area or a skill area or a technology area or a data analysis area. See where I'm going? Wherever it is, exploring it. Making time to explore it. You can't do everything, and you can't do everything at once. So that's not what I'm saying. And I want to be clear about that, because I know that docs, you know, PhDs and EDDs are high achievers, right? And so they think they can do everything all at once. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying an exploration mindset means that you're okay to, you know, dabble into that. It might be, hey, I think I like photography. All right, pick up a camera, do it. Have fun with it. Figure it out. How does it work? Who else is interested in this? Oh, you might actually get hired to do some of this. You never know how these things come full circle in your what becomes valuable later in your career. And so that's why I say don't second guess things that come to you, but instead at least take the first step to explore. And so that's why, you know, on our website, one of the things that we offer, the first pieces that we offer is it's a video training, and it's free for anyone. And it's called How to Explore and Expand Your Options. Because too often we don't know where to get started with that exploration. So it's a 25-minute video training. It has worksheets to it. It's for free. Anyone can go and download it. But it is walking you through a process and getting you to a comfort level with exploring. How do I do it? How do I keep options open and still feel like I'm focused? That's what you want to know. You can be focused and still be well-rounded. You can be focused and still create options for yourself. And it's the person that narrows down so tightly that does not allow for options and opportunity to come in. And that's the rub. You always want opportunities to be able to flow in, right? You always want opportunity to flow in. You don't have to take it, but you want it to flow. You want to be open to it, because you never know what that's opening up for you next.
You've dropped a lot of gems today, and I hope people are watching, really, you know, soak it in and pay attention. You know, my field, I think maybe, I don't say easier to people, but there's more of a clear path, let's say, within the field of education, because, you know, particularly if you start out in K through 12, you know what the career ladder is, but you also know different avenues where you can kind of split. It's just of you sort of determining where you sort of fit in that cog. Before I go, I want you to give your call to action for those students who they've decided, I'm done. This will be the last cap and gown I'm gonna wear in my life. I'm done with the ivory tower. I'm ready to move on. Where do they start first?
One of the things I would say is, even when you're ready to move on, you have actually gained a huge piece of intellectual capital. And so never forget that. And look for ways that you can leverage that, right? That intellectual capital is valuable to many people, to many organizations, to many fields. So even when you're done, Don't do a 360 and turn your back on it. Capture that value. That's one thing I see people say, oh, I'm so done, I'm ready to go. Be ready, but take that degree and all that means with you, right? Leverage that for the next place, because I've also found that sometimes a degree becomes more valuable when you move into different spaces where not many people have it, but that then you become like a specialist in that, and among the team or group of people who need what you want. Or need what you have and what you have to offer. So that's the first thing, is capture the value. Always capture that value in your narrative, and the way that you talk about yourself, and the way that you think about what you can do next. In some ways, you want to capture that value. And the next thing is, I mean, there's many steps that go along with this, but if you are interested, you really need to begin to inform yourself and put yourself in circles where people are doing things that are of interest to you. You will not, and I say this and pause, you will not figure out your next steps by sitting in a room by yourself. It won't happen. If you're in a room by yourself, you're going to be on something like this, and you're going to be mentoring with someone, or like you said, you'll be on Twitter talking to other people. But I guarantee you, you will not find your next level and your next step by keeping it all in your head and trying to figure it out on your own. Yes, you have a doctorate. Yes, you can do amazing things, but the power is in leveraging your community to help you think through and solve the what is next, and to open your eyes as to what is possible for you. So those are the things that I would say. And as I mentioned earlier, if you go to beyondthetenuretrack.com, that video that's there, I break down some of these steps and walk you through it, because I understand just how challenging it can be to say, great, I've embraced that I'm this person that can do these diverse things. I embrace that I'm this person that has many skills, and I even think I know what to do, but what? What next? How do I begin to operationalize this, especially when it starts to feel lonely? Because more than likely, your colleagues, your close colleagues right now, are your other cohort members or people in your program. And so when you start to rank a little bit and do something different, it can get isolating. So you need even more to be in that community of circle of people and have clear and good resources to help you walk through this transition. So that's my call to action.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you again, Dr. Fatimah Williams Castro, for being a guest on the Dr. Will Show. This is my first time putting on this cap and gown since I actually graduated.
And you got a good one. I was so ready to go. I just got the cheap one they gave for free. You got a nice one.
Well, I purchased it. Because I wanted, I purchased it. It was been in the closet. My wife had it backed up and put in the closet.
Yeah.
And every now and then I was thinking, oh, I could wear it to a high school graduation. I go to the, since I'm at the high school, I put, kind of show it off a bit, but it's a little hot, it's a little hot. But I thank you for being a guest on the show. I hope my viewers go to our website. Great information. I love the information that is there. It's awesome. Even I wrote that piece about that guy. He had his doctorate, and they're like, "What you gonna do?" And he's now going back to school to learn something else, because he's like, "This is what I'm passionate about."
Yep.
So that's some cool stuff.
Yeah. And he's rocking it in the tech field right now. A political scientist, PhD, didn't know what in the heck he was going to do. Came to me talking about, I'm going to write a book. I said, okay, how are you going to eat while you write that book? Like, that's great. How are you going to eat? And it was that nudging for him, a political scientist who I don't think he'd ever even really built much of anything online. He invested in himself to, one, get coaching. And the second thing he did was he invested in himself to hustle from Philly to New York weekly to get training in coding. And through that, contact with people who need coders. He could write his own opportunity after that. Why? He invested in the experience, and he did not ignore the nudging. It won't always make sense in the beginning, but I guarantee you walk it through, it's going to respond for you.
Yeah. I thought we were going to have a mama right there. She was going. People, I hope you listen to this episode again. This is going to be on my blog. This will be on LinkedIn, I'm going to pop this in
Awesome.
SoundCloud, of course, YouTube. I'll be tweeting this thing out as well tonight. There'll be ways for you to get in contact with the doc on her via different social media channels. As always, invest in you, edu, peace.